Hello everyone and welcome again to the Prado Museum in Madrid, Spain. We're here for another of the weekly sessions in English with the American Friends of the Prado Museum, and today we're going to be talking about passion, about romantic, mythological passion. Stories of love and mythology were popular subjects for artists to paint in the 16th and the 17th centuries because an ambitious artist, free from the restrictions of maybe religious commissions or court portraiture, could explore how to represent the naked human body and how to incorporate landscape, or how to capture the wide array of human emotions that are in those stories, from their passionate beginnings to the tragic ends. And depending on the moment that an artist decided to paint, well, the painting would change entirely. So today we're going to see one story, Venus and Adonis, and see how it was painted by two different painters. And the first we're going to look at is this one by Annibale Carracci. Annibale Carracci was born in Bologna, and he was active in Bologna and also in Rome in the 16th century, the second half of the 16th century, and in the beginning of the 17th. So first we'll talk about the story about Venus and Adonis. Remember what the story is, and think about the moment that he decided to paint in that story. So this is based on a story that's told in Ovid's Metamorphoses from Book 10. So many mythological stories, both in the Prado Museum and then in museums all over the world, come from this book, from the Metamorphoses. The protagonist of the story, of course, is Venus. Venus is the Roman goddess of love and beauty. Her Greek predecessor was Aphrodite. And we can identify her with her beauty and her blonde hair, and also these doves that we have near her feet. These doves are representative of Venus. Her son was Cupid, and Cupid, of course, has these arrows that make anyone fall in love. And we can see what he's pointing at here as he's laughing. He's accidentally grazed his mother. And of course, as that arrow scrapes her, this is the very same moment that Adonis happens to be passing by. Adonis was a young hunter, and he was extremely handsome. And we can identify him as a hunter because he's got this animal skin around his shoulders, he's carrying a bow and arrow, and he's accompanied by these dogs, which of course are hunting dogs. All of these things tell us that Adonis is a hunter. So Venus falls deeply in love with him. Venus, a goddess, falls in love with Adonis, a human. And so she comes down from her celestial home to live with Adonis in the forest. And so here we can think now about how important it is for the artist to paint the landscape, because they lived in their own little refuge, their own little corner of the forest that was lush and fertile and romantic. And one day, well, Venus had another lover, Mars. And Mars found out about Venus and Adonis, and he became jealous. So one day, he transformed himself into a boar. And when Adonis went out hunting, this boar, which was really Mars, attacked him, and he died from his wounds. And when Venus found him, of course, she was devastated. And as Adonis's blood was seeping into the ground, small little red wildflowers bloomed. And these are called the anemone, or the Adonis flower. Now, this is a very unique way to paint this story. Not a lot of other painters have chosen to depict this moment of the story of Venus and Adonis. And because of that, the painter is able to explore certain ideas, certain feelings, certain expressions, like we can think about desire when we look at Venus's gaze, or surprise when we see Adonis's gesture, or even humor when we look at Cupid. All of this is about this first moment of love. And actually in Spanish, the first moment of attraction is called a flechazo. And a flechazo really is, literally translates to a wound from an arrow. And we're lucky here in the Prado Museum because we can compare this with another painting by Paolo Veronese, painted in 1580, just a few years earlier. And again, we'll look at this painting and think about the moment that Veronese has decided to depict. So here we see Venus holding Adonis in her lap, and Adonis is sleeping. And so immediately this seems like a nice, peaceful moment. However, there's a lot more tension in this scene we're going to see. Adonis' sleep references the lover's affair, but it also prefigures his death. If we think of other images that we might have in mind of a woman holding a grown, lifeless man in her lap, then we might think of the Virgin Mary holding her son Jesus after he's been taken down from the cross, the Pietà. And Venus's expression captures our attention at first, but what is she looking at? Well, she's looking down at Cupid and the dog. Cupid's trying to hold the dog back. The dog is agitated, he's excited, and he's about to bark. He's caught the scent of the boar. And Cupid's trying to hold him back. And when we look at Venus's face, we can see that she has this sense that something is terribly wrong. She has this intuition that something is not going right. Something bad is going to happen. And she's fearing the worst, which, of course, is exactly what's going to happen. The dog is going to bark. It's going to wake up Adonis from this sleep. He's going to go out to hunt. And of course, that hunt will end his life and end this affair. He'll be woken up from this moment of peace and of intimacy with Venus. It's a moment of emotional tension, of fear, of imminent loss and heartbreak. So we have two different moments and interpretations of one of the greatest love stories and a great challenge for a painter in the 16th century. And comparing the two lets us think about the different artistic personalities, both of Veronese and of Carracci. So I hope you've enjoyed seeing both of them and comparing the two together. Everything that I've talked about today you can find in an exhibition catalog from an exhibit that we had here in the museum in 2021 called Mythological Passions, and there's essays there by Miguel Falomir, by the director of the museum, and also Alejandro Vergara. So if you're interested, I encourage you to check it out because it's available both in Spanish and in English. So thank you for joining me today, and we'll see you again next Wednesday.